Minister, Turkey's Director of Communications, policymakers, analysts, academics, guests, welcome everyone to Day 2 of the 2026 International Strategic Communications Summit here in Istanbul.
Sayın Dışişleri Bakanım, Sayın İletişim Başkanım, değerli misafirler, Stratcom 2026 zirvesinin ikinci gününe hepiniz hoş geldiniz.
We, of course, have another full day of panels, talks, and presentations ahead of us as we explore disruption in the international system, crises, narratives, and the search for order. I'm Andrea Sankey. I'm the host of the Newsmakers on TRT World, and I'm, of course, joined by my colleague, Alican Ayanlar.
Uluslararası sistemde kopuş, krizler, anlatılar ve düzen arayışı temasını ele alacağımız panel ve konuşmalarla dolu yoğun bir güne bizleri bekliyor. Ben Alican Ayanlar, meslektaşım Andrea Sankey ile birlikte beraberiz yine bu sahnede. Değerli katılımcılar, Stratcom zirvesinin ikinci günü başlıyor.
Humanity is not merely weathering a passing storm. We are in the midst of a profound tectonic shift. The rules we once knew are eroding. The very systems that promised justice and order now face a haunting silence and a burgeoning uncertainty. This is more than a shift in power. It is a fracture of legitimacy and trust. The world is now multipolar, yet unaligned. Voices are many, yet a common language is absent. Crises are no longer visitors. They are the atmosphere in which we breathe. Beneath the shadow of algorithms, the digital universe warps the truth like a sheet of paper. In this chaos of noise, who will anchor trust? Who will govern the uncertainty? Communication is no longer just the design of a message. It is the foundational will behind the architecture of order. Trust is not a byproduct. It is a strategic public value that must be fought for. Through transparency and inclusive narratives, we must build a governance that is fairer, stronger, and more resilient to shape the future together, to redefine the order. Welcome to the Stratcom Summit 2026.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, let's get immediately to our first very esteemed speaker. Welcome to the stage, the Foreign Minister of the Republic of Turkey, Mr. Hakan Fidan.
Değerli misafirler, çok fazla vakit kaybetmeden ilk ve çok değerli konuşmacımızı sahneye davet etmek istiyorum. Türkiye Cumhuriyeti Dışişleri Bakanı Sayın Hakan Fidan'ı sahneye çağırıyoruz efendim.
Distinguished guests, good morning to you all. It's a pleasure to address you at this year's International Strategic Communication Summit. This has become a truly global arena for strategic, diplomatic, and intellectual engagement. Therefore, I commend the Directorate of Communications for elevating this summit into a platform where the world's most difficult questions can be confronted honestly. This year's theme couldn't be more accurate and relevant. We are not simply living through a period of instability, we are living through a systemic rupture. This is the outcome of a deeper disruption. Disruption is what happens when the international system loses its moral compass, its strategic coherence, and its ability to produce legitimacy. Crises follow when institutions designed to maintain peace and security can no longer contain conflicts, prevent escalation, or create pathways to peace. So the defining political question of our era is very simple. Does the international system still have the authority and the credibility to govern relations among states on the basis of justice, predictability, and trust? Today, unfortunately, the answer is painfully clear. The present state of global governance is dysfunctional, paralyzed, and unsustainable. And this systemic disruption didn't occur overnight. It is the result of structural decay that Turkey has systematically exposed for years. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's call for global justice and for the reform of international institutions was not a political slogan, it was just a diagnosis. A diagnosis many ignored until the crisis arrived at their own doorstep. From the rostrum of the United Nations to countless multilateral platforms, we consistently sounded the alarm. At the time, many preferred the illusion of their geopolitical comfort zones. For years, as long as the cost of the dysfunctional order was paid elsewhere, many were content with maintaining a self-serving status quo. But today, that illusion has shattered. Those who comfortably benefited from the unjust system are facing a reality as the crises finally touch their own shores. So if this is the age of systemic disruption, then we must also ask a more precise question. What exactly is being contested? In other words, as we head toward a polycentric system, there are more questions than answers. Where will the new centers of gravity emerge? Who will set the new rules for technology? How will the vital energy and trade routes be safeguarded? Many questions can be added to the list. These questions multiplying before us will shape the next century. Distinguished guests, these are not academic debates. They are being fought out on real battlefields. Once again, our region is the epicenter. The unlawful strikes against Iran pushed the region to the brink of a wider war, triggered by relentless Israeli escalation. We reject any scenario that drags regional states into a devastating conflict. Iranian actions affecting Gulf nations carry precisely this risk. Let us be clear. This may be the Israelis' war of choice, but the entire world is paying the price. As the conflict prolongs, the geopolitical and economic complications multiply at an alarming rate. From day one, we warned against this dangerous trajectory. This is a war engineered for Netanyahu's political survival, yet its burden unfortunately falls upon the rest of the world. This is precisely why we continue to call for utmost restraint. This conflict carries the potential to deepen wounds and divide nations whose destinies are intertwined in our region. It can cause enduring scars not only in cities, but also in the hearts and minds of the peoples of our region. There is only one viable way out for us. That is the escalation and diplomacy. That is why precisely Turkey, in close coordination with regional partners, is actively leading the push for a diplomatic resolution. I recently visited Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates to demonstrate our solidarity and synchronize our diplomatic response. As the countries of the region, we stood united in demanding an immediate end to the ongoing conflict. At the same time, we declared our strong opposition to Israel's expansionist policies, particularly its latest aggression against Lebanon. To operationalize these efforts, we continue our constant high-level dialogue. Our objective is to chart out actionable steps to end this conflict as soon as possible. This senseless war must end before further destruction unfolds, before deeper enmities take root, before global economy suffers irreversible damage. The channels of dialogue must be open, and a result-oriented negotiation process must commence swiftly. However, as we pave the way for peace, we cannot allow Netanyahu's fundamentalist and maximalist posture to sabotage diplomatic solutions yet again. For too long, we have warned about this engineered chaos. The strategic objective here is to engineer a perpetual state of conflict designed to keep the nations of the region weak, divided, and vulnerable. This strategy of systemic destabilization must be stopped. We are confronted with a mindset that doesn't hesitate to target humanitarian workers, mediators, diplomats, and embassies. That impunity alone exposes how severe the structural erosion of the global order has truly become. Behind this, there is also a grave warning to the international community. When the institution of diplomacy itself is deliberately put in the line of fire, the entire international architecture enters its most dangerous terminal phase. In moments like this, clarity of mind is a strategic asset. Common sense is needed most during the darkest hours. Turkey will continue to mobilize every diplomatic instrument to that end. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, in today's world, the battlefield is not only physical, it is also informational. We live in an era where the narrative has become just as vital and just as fiercely contested as the realities on the ground. Narratives are weaponized to shape perception, frame reality, and too often obscure the truth itself. The starkest manifestation of this has already been unfolding right before our eyes in the case of Israel's genocide in Gaza. For far too long, the systemic targeting of civilians has been packaged within a manufactured narrative designed to normalize this brutality. For decades, a massive global political and media apparatus attempted to downplay Israel's territorial expansionism. Even the language of daily reporting can shape and constrain perception. Headlines are framed so deceptively and with such double standard that the desired conclusion is already imposed upon the reader. Illegal invasions and unlawful occupations of Israel are sanitized in headlines. Blatant aggression is reframed as self-defense. And make no mistake, this machinery of deception is still fully operational today. But thankfully, the global public is no longer blinded by these manipulated narratives. Most people can see right through these manufactured headlines. Today, only a shrinking handful of mainstream apologists are left, desperately trying to defend the indefensible. If there is any silver lining to the unprecedented atrocities we have witnessed, it is this. A carefully engineered propaganda machine is now disintegrating under the sheer weight of its own injustice. This shift is monumental. Around the Palestinian cause, a global moral consciousness has been gathering immense force. It is growing across societies, across generations, and across political boundaries. And let me assure you, this rising wave of common conscience will be impossible to suppress. Distinguished guests, having the moral high ground is essential, but it is no longer enough on its own. Shaping the global narrative is not just about what we say, it is equally what, where, and how we say it. We are living through an unprecedented technological revolution. In just a few generations, we have transitioned from traditional broadcasting to digital ecosystem. In this new reality, content creation is a strategic frontier in its own right. The sheer speed of data production facilitates the spread of false, biased, and malicious content. A resilient society is only possible through a secure and healthy flow of information. To the journalists, thinkers, and intellectuals present here today, if I may say, I want to recall a profound wisdom from our own tradition of statecraft, attributed to Nizam al-Mulk, the great vizier of Selçuklu Turks. He says, and I quote, "You can throw a spear or an arrow only to a certain distance. Its physical impact is limited. But the reach of a word or text or an idea is boundless." The question before us is not only how false narratives are collapsing, it is also narratives we must have built in their place. In other words, what is our vision for our region and beyond? This brings us to the final pillar of our theme, the search for order and lasting stability. First of all, we must categorically reject every attempt to make a war permanent condition in our region. We must reject the defeatist narrative that tells us that violence is inevitable and instability is natural. We must trust in our own historical depth, civilizational heritage, and capacity to shape our future. But first, we have to put out the fire. Peace and security must be restored in our region through de-escalation and diplomacy. That is the urgent task before us. Only then prosperity can follow, regional cooperation can deepen, stability can expand outward in wider circles. That is essentially our guess for a new order in our region. But it is going to take a different path than the externally imposed models of the past. It will be built from within through political courage. It will be built by focusing on the shared interests rather than the short-term calculations of those who profit from the tension. We know all too well the old truth. Tearing down is the work of a moment, but building is the labor of a generation. That is why we need to act patiently and steadily with deepening regional coordination. One thing is certain, our region will never be the same again. In fact, the recent conflict has already galvanized a new wave of intra-regional solidarity. Equally crucial, the conflict has exposed the vulnerabilities of the existing security arrangements in our region. We all need to embrace the security responsibility of our region because we prosper together when there is a peace and stability. We all suffer when there is no conflict and instability. There is conflict and stability. The bitter lessons of recent history have taught us valuable lessons. Our region shouldn't be vulnerable to external intervention anymore. We've seen this destructive pattern repeat every 2 decades. We need to break this vicious cycle with a common vision and joint endeavor. And we are going to achieve it through regional ownership. Our sincere desire is to leave tensions behind and expand cooperation that serves the common good for our peoples in the region. Türkiye is fully committed to realizing this common vision in a spirit of true regional solidarity. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Foreign Minister Hakan. Fidan.
Sayın Bakanım çok Çok teşekkür ederim. Sağ olun efendim.